some more.
Nashville.
See, getting ready for an interview. Probably have to go all the way to the end to get an interview. I'm going to continue on.
Things sort of one step at a time. They're doing many steps at once to try to find out sort of what's going on and what happened here. So it is common practice and a better investigative method to come out and not talk about what they know yet, what the investigative steps may be, but to build their case. But at the same time, they do have an obligation to the public to let them know what's going on, and so they're trying to fulfill that too. So they're walking that fine line between making sure that they don't do anything to compromise the investigation, compromise the case that may result from the investigation.
Right. Well, at the same time, you point out protect the public and protect the rest of law enforcement. We know right now that there are bomb dogs searching buildings and cars in downtown Nashville to make sure there's no secondary devices. Michael Moore, former U.S. attorney, we appreciate your time and your analysis here. And as you rightly point out, we're learning tidbits of facts, and then you put those together. And we obviously know the FBI and others have a lot more tidbits than we do. Michael, thank you. Julie, what struck me, what Michael said, there's a few things that you put together here. Intentional act, Christmas morning, 6:30 in the morning, phone call ahead of time about a suspicious vehicle. We're beginning to get a picture of what happened in downtown Nashville and also the heroic acts of law enforcement there.
Let me just touch on that. That suspicious, okay, first of all, that 5:30 in the morning 911 call was on shots fired. So they went to the scene. There is no evidence of shots fired. So a 911 call was placed. An hour later, an RV explodes. Thanks to a police officer who deemed it suspicious, got people out of there in time. But that 5:30 a.m. 911 call, we are going to be learning a heck of a lot more about who placed that call and why shots were fired allegedly when there is no evidence of such a thing occurring. This investigation continues. The FBI, ATF are heading the investigation. We appreciate you watching and continuing coverage now with America's News Headquarters.
Fox News alert this morning, a massive explosion rocking Nashville on Christmas morning, and police say they do not think it was an accident. Officials set to hold a news conference any minute now. The blast blackening streets and damaging at least 20 buildings, blowing out windows and forcing folks out of bed in Music City. At least 3 people injured. Some say it felt like an earthquake. We're seeing extensive damages in the popular downtown area near Broadway. The FBI and ATF have joined Metro PD on scene, and police say there is little question this explosion was a deliberate act. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom, and Merry Christmas. I'm Rick Leventhal.
Merry Christmas, Rick, and to everyone there at home. I am Molly Lyon. We are watching what has just occurred here all through the morning in Nashville. Quite a scene. The explosion felt miles away, taking place shortly before dawn. Police have been responding to reports of shots fired in that area and alerted the bomb squad about a suspicious recreational vehicle shortly before that blast. We are expecting a press conference. You can see the microphones there set up right now. We expect to hear from the FBI out of Memphis, the ATF, and of course also local police seeking more information about what occurred there in Nashville. But on the ground in Washington, we have Rich Edson to bring us what we know from there. Rich.
Now, good afternoon, Molly. It is a major police response in downtown Nashville after an RV blew up there at 6:30 this morning. An explosion, police say, was intentional. Law enforcement there has scheduled another briefing. That's supposed to happen within minutes. Police say 3 people went to the hospital, though none are in critical condition. Witnesses say the explosion shattered glass, knocked down trees, and shook buildings, causing smoke and fire visible from across the Nashville area.
The explosion knocked one of our officers to the ground. Thankfully, no officers were significantly hurt. I think one officer sustained some what we hope is temporary hearing loss, but no other officers have been injured.
Police say they dispatched officers to the area this morning after a call about gunfire. When they arrived, they say they saw this RV. They say it looks suspicious. called the bomb squad and started clearing people out of the area. Police say they've sealed off downtown. They've brought in police dogs to make sure there are no other explosives. They have no indication there are other devices. The Department of Justice says early this morning the acting attorney general, Jeff Rosen, directed department resources to Nashville. And Nashville Metro Police say the FBI and ATF are investigating there, and other law enforcement officials will arrive in the coming days. This is right in downtown Nashville, near bars and restaurants, in what is usually a very vibrant tourist city. Molly, back to you.
That it is one of America's most iconic cities. Rich Edson from Washington, thank you. I want to bring in David Katz now. He's a former U.S. federal agent and current CEO of Global Security Group. David, thank you so much for joining us. We're glad we're able to get you on this Christmas and, of course, in the wake of what appears to be an intentional act, an intentional bombing there in Nashville, in an area, as Rich had just pointed out, is normally crowded with tourists. This did occur very early in the morning, 6:30 in the morning, on Christmas Day. Not not crowded at that time as it might be if this was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday night in this great music-centered city. What do you make of the timing of this?
Yeah, well, actually, I was just there a couple months back in that exact neighborhood. It's kind of interesting. It's a little busier during the day, obviously. At night, there's a lot of residential buildings right in the area. 6:30 Christmas morning, you have virtually no street traffic. So we know so far we have a shots fired call, and I agree with the other guests who've made this point. That was my first thought. If shots fired call comes in and there are no shots fired, that's typically an attempt to lure police officers to the scene. Now, we don't know exactly what they saw that tipped them off and said this particular vehicle is problematic, not just suspicious, but possibly a bomb. We know that because they immediately initiated evacuation procedures. But it really a lot of questions here.
Yeah, we really do. And we may get some answers to some of our questions here. We're expecting this press conference to get underway shortly. Once again, we expect the FBI out of Memphis to be there, ATF, as well as the Metro Nashville Police Department. A spokesperson from the police department today, Don Aaron, spoke a little bit about those shots being fired, what had drawn the officer to the area. They did not get into specific details about what that officer, that hero officer that began the motions to clear the area, to ensure that people were out of buildings, what he saw that was so suspicious that entailed calling in the bomb squad on this Christmas morning. But what does that tell us? That he saw something so clearly unusual that he needed to take immediate action?
Well, I was thinking the exact same thing. That area, you would expect an RV to be parked on the street. Maybe it wasn't on the street. Maybe it was actually physically next to the building. That would certainly be an unusual thing. Perhaps you could tell by the weight, the position of the shocks, that it was heavily laden. Maybe there was no tags. There are a bunch of things that we can look at that are indicative of a possible vehicle bomb. But remember, this is an RV. This is a vehicle that can carry a great deal of weight, a great deal of explosive. But that initial assessment by the officer, spot on, critical. And then, of course, shortly thereafter, there's the explosion. Was it a timer? Was it deliberately set? Was it a cell phone transmission? So
David, we're beginning to see the authorities there on the ground walking out, stepping up to the microphone. We'll go there to Nashville.
He will be followed by United States Attorney Don Cochran for the Middle District of Tennessee. He will be followed by Mickey, that's M-I-C-K-E-Y, French, Special Agent in charge of the ATF for this area. He will be followed by Matt Foster, the Special Agent in charge of the Nashville FBI office. And then Nashville Fire Department Chief Director William Swan will speak to some operations that are taking place on 2nd Avenue. Chief John Drake.
Thank you, Don. Good afternoon. This morning, around 5:30 a.m., officers responded to a call for shots fired in the downtown area, specifically 2nd and near Commerce. As officers responded, they encountered an RV that had a recording saying that a potential bomb would detonate within 15 minutes. Officers, upon hearing that, decided to evacuate the buildings nearby. So they began knocking on doors, making announcements, having emergency communications, communicate with everyone to get people safe. Shortly after that, the RV exploded. We had one officer that was knocked to the ground. Another officer is fine. Currently, what we have going on now is we have K9 dogs. All of them are out, partnering with Tennessee Highway Patrol, our federal partners, and we're sweeping the downtown area just as a precaution to make sure that everyone is safe and that any service that needed, we can provide that. And so with that said, we don't feel there's any concern in the downtown area of anything else right now, but we are doing it as a precaution just to search with our bomb dogs. At this time, I'll turn it over to Attorney Don Cochran.
Good afternoon and Merry Christmas. Unfortunately, this is not the way any of us wanted to spend our Christmas morning, I know. But I'm Don Cochran. I'm the U.S. Attorney here in Nashville, Tennessee. This morning I briefed the Acting Attorney General, Jeff Rosen, on the situation here in Nashville, and he has told me to tell the police chief in Nashville that we are devoting the entire resources of the Department of Justice to help in their investigation. FBI and ATF are taking the lead in this investigation, and I want to turn the stage over first to Assistant Special Agent in Charge Matt Foster of the FBI, and then Special Agent in Charge Mickey French of the ATF to explain some of the resources that the federal government is going to bring to bear on this situation. Matt.
Thank you, Don. The FBI stands with the city of Nashville today in this very tragic Christmas Day event. This is our city too. We live here, we work here, and we're putting everything we have into finding who was responsible for what's happened here today. As part of doing that, there are investigative leads to be pursued. There's also technical work that needs to happen, and we're standing with Metro Nashville Police Department and our federal partners and our state partners to bring every resource we can possibly bring to bear to find out what happened here today and to bring those responsible to justice. The investigative leads, I'm sure you understand, it's not something that we can talk about. As we continue to pursue every tip, I would ask the public to go to www.fbi.gov/Nashville. It's www.fbi.gov/Nashville, where an online tip submission process has been set up. Please tell us what you know. We need your leads, we need your help. You can also call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Call in tip information. If you know anything about what has happened here today, we'd appreciate your help. On the technical side, our focus will be on bringing the technical experts of the FBI from across the country, including the FBI laboratory, our hazardous devices school, and our experts from evidence response teams nationwide into Nashville to help process this massive crime scene, along with the ATF, Metro Nashville PD, and the many other partners who were part of this effort that will continue. We will find out what happened here. That's all.
Good afternoon. My name is Mickey French. I'm the Special Agent in Charge for the ATF Nashville Field Division. ATF is continuing to be a critical partner with the Metro Nashville Police Department as well as our federal counterparts. ATF responded this morning with several groups and personnel from the Nashville Field Division. We've also activated our national response team. That particular team is made up of specialists as well, certified explosive specialists, chemists, engineers, as well as evidence recovery, interview teams, and so forth. We'll be coordinating that with Metro Nashville Police Department as well as the FBI, and we'll put together a team that is going to collectively work this investigation to the fullest. Our main priority is obviously to keep our Nashville citizens safe and secure, and we'll work jointly with everybody here to do that. Thank you.
Whole thing I can say, it's a hell of a Christmas gift. Like I said, I think it was in 2005. It was about 12, 15 years ago. Somebody sent the governor a Santa Claus and left it at the Capitol. They thought that it could have possibly had explosions in it of somebody that was willing to do that. It was a great, big, huge Santa Claus. And I don't know who they are. I hope to God that they catch them. But it could be related. Just a bunch of crackpots. A bunch of people just wanting to do crazy stuff.
Good afternoon. I'm going to give you just a quick update. I know Don earlier had mentioned as far as the fire department's role at EMS, we did transport 3 individuals with minor injuries, but right now what we're doing is with our structural engineers, along with our urban search and rescue, hazmat teams, we're going into the buildings, making sure, number one, that the building is sound and ensuring that there are no other victims or anyone that are there. So a lot of moving parts. Again, my hat goes off to all the teams working together as one unit, and we'll continue to work on until the job is done. So thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the update as we know it at present. If there is another briefing for this afternoon, we'll let you know. But you pretty much know what we know at this juncture as far as our community is concerned. Again, to reiterate, we know of no other imminent danger to the city at this point. The bomb dogs going through the downtown area now are doing that as a precaution. Okay?
All this extra security's costing the taxpayers money. Kind of like whenever the tornado hit in March. I mean, these are all problems that the Tennesseans are having to face off on at our expense. Not counting all the damage. Insurance companies going to have to be out of replacing buildings. Some of them are going to have to be locked down, and I'm sure businesses won't be open back up. Cause people to foreclose or cause people to declare bankruptcy. It's unexcusable that anybody would do something like this just to bring attention to themselves.
I can't hear you, Harriet.
Do we have a number yet, maybe an estimate of how many buildings have been damaged in this incident?
I'll talk with Joseph Pleasant from OEM. I can tell you that several of the buildings on 2nd Avenue have structural damage. Several of them have been damaged, some more than others, but we'll get that for you. I know that, as Chief Swan said, the fire department's looking at those structural issues now to determine any more potential.
Some of them may be damaged so bad they have to deem them unsafe and have to bulldoze them down to the ground and start all over again.
Impact.
The bottom line, Don, at this point, do you know the purpose of why this happened?
As the FBI said, we will find that out. There are a number of people working right now on Christmas Day running leads throughout the city. From our police department, the FBI, ATF, answers will be forthcoming. We can't discuss those with you now or exactly what we're looking at, but answers I'm sure will be forthcoming.
Don, was there a body found?
I have no information about any body being found. We do not know whether anyone was in the RV when it exploded. We do not know whether anyone was in the RV when it exploded. So I can't tell you at this point whether there's a potential for a fatality in that scenario.
The megaphone that was warning people to leave, do we know if that was coming from the truck? Was it coming from somewhere else? Do we know?
It is believed it was coming from the RV.
Coming from the RV?
Yes. There were announcements coming from the RV, and that's the extent of what we can say at this point.
Is there guys surveillance footage that are investigating right now?
There are cameras throughout this downtown area. Yes, we have been reviewing downtown cameras, and that is all part of the totality of the investigation.
Some people may have been taken to Central Precinct, whether they were just witnesses, to give a statement, to share what they saw. Has anything come to fruition from that that you can share?
just providing more pieces to the puzzle, more information. As Chief Drake said, we had a number of officers, several officers on 2nd Avenue who were working to protect the public when the explosion occurred. As he said, one of those officers was knocked off his feet. We have some counselors with our officers. Our behavioral health folks are with those officers, ensuring that they're okay. I mean, they went through a very traumatic experience themselves.
You speak to just, I mean, really, it's amazing how these officers and first responders run into the face of danger. They knew, according to that RV, that there was some kind of threat, and they continued to take their time to get people out.
Well, they went to the residential areas on 2nd Avenue and did their best to get people to safety. Obviously, they heard the announcements coming from this vehicle. They took them seriously and were working to seal the streets, to protect folks, and we think it worked. We think lives were saved by those officers doing just that. All right, thanks very much, folks.
Don, can we ask one final question?
Authorities in Nashville, they're wrapping up a briefing on the latest on the explosion that occurred in the area. Hold on, we've got one more question about to be answered. Let's listen.
The vehicle explosion occurred outside 166 2nd, the AT&T building. We do not know if that was a coincidence or whether that was the intention. Okay?
So there were some things we did learn from that news briefing, and some of them, to me, very fascinating details. For one, we can say, or the authorities can say with some assurance, that there are no secondary devices they are aware of, so they're pretty confident that there won't be another explosion. And Molly, I thought the headline there was that when they got that 911 call and arrived on the scene, the RV, the suspicious RV, had a recording that a bomb would be detonating within 15 minutes. And officers were clearing buildings in the area when it actually did explode.
Yeah, that absolutely answered one of the big questions we had as to what exactly was so suspicious when the officers got there that they needed to call in the bomb squad about an RV on Christmas morning. And a recording warning that in 15 minutes there will be a bomb is a pretty clear indication that you need to call in the bomb squad. And those officers are heroes. That is something that the chief there acknowledged just a few moments ago. We think lives were saved. Those officers took the time, the limited amount of time they were potentially led to believe they had from this recording, to get people in that area, those residential apartment buildings, and get people out, and lives were saved. We know the officers, at least one, was so close when the explosion occurred that they were literally blown off their feet. We've also had a report that another officer, potentially the same officer, we're not sure, may have suffered some hearing loss as well. So
yeah, the
really,
explosion was deafening. I saw some video on social media of the actual event itself, and I've talked to people who live in the area who were literally rocked out of their beds, and we hope to get them on sometime this afternoon. We do know that the FBI and ATF are taking the lead on this, and I can tell you the FBI's evidence response team is very, very good at collecting the little shreds on the ground there that could lead them to the clue they need to determine who exactly did this. And we heard from Metro PD there that they don't know if someone was actually in that RV when it detonated, and they are going building to building to see if there might be more victims, and also to ensure that those buildings are structurally sound. Let's bring back David Katz, a former U.S. federal agent. David, was there anything that you heard?
I'm going to leave it there at that. It's really sad that somebody was to do something like this, but it's even sadder that they're willing to do it on Christmas Day. On Christmas Day, of all days. Jesus. Good luck to all of us.